Hello and welcome back to Coven Season 3. This is a podcast where we tell stories of enigmatic people throughout history whose fascinating lives echo the complex archetype of the witch and commune with our dream coven. I'm Jenna.
I'm Coco.
And we're your hosts. Back for another episode, and I forgot to think of a magic moment for this episode, but I mean, I could talk more about how the astrology is just so insanely accurate.
Please do.
So I guess my magic moment is just, so in the last episode, I talked about the sun and Jupiter going through my 12th house as like signifying a time of retreat and expanded like psychological upheaval. Like so much is just bubbling up to the surface. It's like in every little thing that I do, it's like I'm now extremely aware of all of like the psychological blocks that are just beneath the surface that I didn't have access to before.
Wow.
But what's also happening, y'all are all witnessing, you all and also the listeners are witnessing some of the craziest astrology that I'll probably ever have in my life. So that's kind of fun because I'm going through my Saturn return, but my Saturn return is happening at the same time that Saturn in the sky is conjunct Neptune, because my natal Saturn is at 0 degrees Aries. That's where Saturn and Neptune are in the sky, roughly right now. And what's happening on the 7th, on Monday, Uranus moves into Gemini at 0 degrees Gemini, which opposes my natal Sun and Pluto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so on Monday, I have Uranus opposing my Sun at 0 degrees Sag, and my Pluto is at 2 degrees Sag. So there's just a lot happening.
Are you feeling the chaotic transformation happening in your identity right
100%,
now?
100%. And that's what I was going to talk about. So last time I talked about the retreat feeling and the isolation feeling of the 12th house activity. But at the same time, I feel this intense like liberation unwinding happening.
Like awakening?
Total awakening, but it's like all kind of muffled by like also Saturn Neptune feels really like restrictive and like foggy and uncertain and tense. Yeah, there's a lot of really wild shit happening, and I've been saying to Josh many times, I just feel like everything feels psychedelic right now. I feel like I'm having like a crazy just experience.
That's very Neptunian.
So, yeah. So that's my magic moment. It's more about,
maybe you should take some mushrooms, then everything will become clear.
I thought about like, would psychedelics be a good idea for me right now? And I keep going back and forth on if that would just be like the best thing for me or the absolute worst thing for me.
Either way, it'll be transformative.
True. Anyway, August, listeners, August of 2025 is going to be batshit for me. So keep me in your prayers. Do you have a magic moment?
No, I can't think of one right now, actually. I mean, just, yeah, everything's crazy. Everything's crazy.
Everything is crazy. That is so true. Yeah. All right. Well, let's jump into it.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear who your person is. Yeah. I'm excited to look at their chart. So you were saying earlier that...
Yeah. So this week I am telling a story of a person that I've researched, and Coco doesn't know who I've researched. I'm going to give Coco their birth chart, and Coco's going to look at it and give a blind natal chart reading. The only thing is, my person this week has a general time frame for birth. It's anywhere from 1849 to 1853.
Okay.
And some historians, a lot of people say 1853, a lot of people say 1851, a lot of people say 1849. After spending significant time with this person and her story and comparing transits to her chart, I landed on 1850. Which I haven't found in any of the historians' records, but nobody really, there's no record of when she was born. It's just within that time frame. So, yeah, the date that I picked is not a date that you would find anywhere Googling her, but it made the most sense. And we'll get into that. So without
Awesome.
further ado.
Okay. Okay. Ooh. Ooh. Scorpio rising, 16 degrees, 22 minutes. And then Chiron retrograde in the second house in Sagittarius. And that is squaring Jupiter in the 11th house. Black Moon Lilith opposing Mars. That's fuck the patriarchy if I've ever seen it. Let's see here. Venus opposing Chiron as well. There's a lot. They've got a lot of aspects to Chiron is squaring Neptune. Chiron is opposing Venus. Chiron is squaring Jupiter. A lot of trauma and pain. And then Moon in Aquarius. Oh, my moon's in Aquarius, so I understand. Forward thinking. Also about humanity, but probably undercover. Neptune squaring Venus. Creative. Very creative. Like I also like to think of people who have their Neptune Venus aspects, not just like creative, like painting or singing or anything like that, but creative problem solving as well. Saturn trine, Chiron, Saturn trining Chiron, sorry. And Uranus and Pluto conjunct in Aries. And Saturn right there too. Oy, oy, oy. It's like all of everything that is transformative and kind of blows our life up, but also structure around it. Taurus Sun in the 7th house, 14 degrees, 7 minutes. Grounded, earthy, and interesting. Venus, Mercury conjunct. Just question, like, because you were saying that you're not sure when their birthday is. Were you trying to take the houses into account as well? Okay. So writing, communicating, small bits of communication about things that are hidden, taboo, not supposed to be talked about, or also things that were the result of a partnership or some kind of relationship. And Jupiter in the 11th house in Virgo. That's interesting. And also retrograde. Something about groups, a lot of groups, organizing groups, perfectly organizing groups, a lot of them. For, let's see here, trining the sun. And North Node, also trining Saturn. Some kind of like organizing for liberation. Okay. Pisces. Sorry, not Pisces. Mars in Cancer.
Yeah.
Very protective. Fired up and protective because Mars. Long distance travel or philosophy and religion or higher levels of education or publishing or writing. Yeah.
Pretty spot on.
All
And I would
right.
say, yeah, I feel like that validates me in the birth chart that I picked.
Oh, good.
Because that is extremely accurate.
Yay.
So I'm curious, I feel like you might know who my person is.
Oh, who is it?
Because I feel like this might be somebody that you've studied, maybe. Lucy Parsons.
I do not know who that is.
Amazing.
I don't know who that
not
is.
amazing, because again, like you're saying, it's crazy that this is not somebody that we've heard about. But I mean, it's not crazy. Of course, we haven't heard
We know
about
why.
her.
Lucy Parsons. Okay.
Lucy Parsons is known as the goddess of anarchy.
Yes.
She's known as the goddess of anarchy. She is an orator, a writer, a public speaker, a fighter, a just political anarchist her whole life until she died. So
that's amazing. I love her.
yeah, I'm excited to dive into her story. So Lucy Gonzalez Parsons, there's a lot of other names out there, and we'll kind of touch on that later. But she was born into slavery. She was most likely born to an enslaved woman named Charlotte in Virginia. And her father was most likely her slave owner, Thomas J. Taliaferro. None of this is confirmed. And also Lucy herself was all over the place about her past and her upbringing, of course.
Yeah.
It is most likely, again, all of her like early life is just like most likely. There's historians who have done the research, but there's no confirmed dates or place for any of this. But most likely, after the Civil War in 1863, Thomas brought the family to his Texas plantation to try to keep them as enslaved as he could. And it's inferred that Charlotte, her mother, fled with her children to Waco, Texas, while Thomas was away on a trip. And Waco was known at the time. Waco, Texas is where Baylor University is. It's like 2 hours outside of Austin.
Okay.
And Waco was a booming town post-Civil War for a town of reinvention for former slaves and Confederate soldiers who surrendered and flipped and wanted to like leave behind their past and start a new life. So there were apparently a lot of opportunities in Waco for freed Black people who didn't want to work on plantations anymore. This became like a really popular place for people to go to like start their own businesses and have a fresh start.
Never knew that about Waco.
I didn't know that either.
Interesting.
It's such a random town.
Yeah. There are other reasons why Waco has been put on the map, but we won't talk about that right now.
Yeah, we were talking about those as well. It's super interesting. So it makes sense that in Waco she is, it's a town that is popular for reinventing yourself and for leaving your past behind. You can be whoever you want to be. You're no longer defined by this. So it makes sense that she wouldn't really ever want to talk about her past, obviously. At some point in time, she gets married to, or she lives with, a much older, also freed Black man named Oliver Benton. He's like in his 30s, and she's most likely 15 or 16 when they get together. He pays for her schooling, and she has a baby with him. But that baby dies in infancy, and she separates from Oliver. Not much is known about that story, but I found that everywhere. After she separates from Oliver, she meets Albert Parsons. So she wasn't born Lucy Gonzalez Parsons. She was born Lucy Gonzalez, or unclear what she was born as. So she meets Albert Parsons in 1870, who also lives in Waco. He was a former Confederate soldier, completely transformed by witnessing atrocities. Wow. So after the Civil War, he was just completely put off by everything that he witnessed, and he surrendered. He wrote. He was a writer, so he was a Gemini. I didn't look at his full chart, but he was a Gemini. And he was a writer, and so he and a journalist, I think. And so he was writing about how he fully accepted the surrender and how he thought everything was just that the South was completely incorrect. And when he started writing, he started getting more attention for this, and he became a civil rights activist. And then he started realizing how much work needed to be done. Yeah, he kind of rocked.
See, all of you right-wing conservatives, MAGA,
It's possible.
you can turn it all around.
It's true. Yeah, no, he ended up being really sick. I was cautious, like, reading into his
Sick
story.
as in cool.
Yeah. He ended up being cool.
Sick as in groovy.
I was cautious looking into his story. Didn't, again, like any of the people I cover who have well-known husbands, I'm wary of like spending too much time on their stories.
Yeah.
But he's another one that I think is worth spending time on.
Yeah. You don't hear about that very often.
You don't. Yeah. So he starts writing about civil rights for African Americans, and he starts being kind of lifted up in that community, which, there's a whole other thing there of like, are you
An ally?
Or are you taking advantage
Right.
of people who really need help?
Yeah.
But at one point he's shot in the leg for helping Black people register to vote. And he decides that he wants to get into politics. So he decides to go into politics for the Republican Party, which
was different back then. Yeah.
Yeah. He meets Lucy in 1870. They fall in love. They get married in 1872, but a few weeks later, Texas outlaws interracial marriage. And this whole time... Yeah, this whole time, Lucy is denying her Black heritage. She's often citing that she is of Mexican and indigenous ancestry. And this would remain clear until her death, but it's likely that she intentionally created confusion around this. Some things that I was reading were saying it was likely because it was safer to be Mexican or indigenous in Texas at the time. Some were saying that she was just of mixed race. But it seems pretty consistent that she was avoiding her Black ancestry for safety because this was Texas.
Yeah.
Post-Civil War, lynching, the KKK, like this was happening. And so they flee.
A lot of people want to be able to pass or have to do things in order to be able to pass for white.
Yeah, right. And she was somebody who could pass for not Black necessarily. And so she was definitely trying to do that. And I think just can't possibly imagine the kinds of trauma that she went through in childhood and the desire to leave that behind, to not be defined by that, to not live as that. Something that I just couldn't possibly understand. And so I don't feel like it's my place to pass any sort of judgment on that. But they're receiving death threats in Texas because of their interracial marriage, but also just because of the things that he's saying. At the time, Lucy is not really getting involved. She's just kind of trying to make a life for herself. She's there. But they flee to Chicago. And they think that Chicago is going to be safer for them, but he's also like getting into politics. And so he thinks that's going to be a better place for him to...
When did they flee for Chicago? What year?
1872.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know what's coming?
No. I just trying to get the timeline right in my head. Yeah.
Yeah. So 1872 would have made her 22 at the time. And he was only like a year older than her or something. Or, yeah, they were pretty much the same age. In Chicago, he gets a job for writing for the Chicago Times, and Lucy's working as a seamstress. And they're pretty happy here. He's starting to write more politically. He's gaining more traction in the Republican Party. But as he's writing, he's realizing just more and more how corrupt the Republican Party is, how corrupt the North is with the South.
Politicians corrupt?
I know,
What?
yeah. And so it's also like, I read different things. This was something else that I guess I should mention. Researching Lucy kind of felt like researching Anais Nin in the sense that most things I was reading, even one of my references, one of my sources is the Princeton, like African American Studies at Princeton University was an article on the Princeton website. And it painted both Albert and Lucy as kind of like opportunistic and hypocritical. And I was like reading that because it felt like it was coming from a really legit source. I was like, maybe I shouldn't do them. I don't know. But then reading more and like going to like anarchist journals and watching getting some more collected data, I was like, interesting.
Of course, white people are going to call brown people opportunistic if they're trying to fucking survive.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. Well, because that's where you get this idea of anarchy. Anarchy doesn't fit with either party. And so even when you have like the liberal institutions writing about it, they don't want to paint it in a positive light.
I wouldn't call Yale a liberal institution, but
Princeton.
Oh, okay. Okay. Or Princeton.
not a liberal. You don't think it's like
I wouldn't call any of those institutions liberal or progressive. I guess
I should say Democrat.
Yeah. I mean, having to fight astrology, for example, is a system of knowledge that has been around for thousands of years, and no university will touch it with a 10-foot pole, even though historically...
Except our university.
Yeah, except where we go to school. Thank God for the California Institute of Integral Studies. But they're all bought and paid for, as far as I'm concerned.
It's true. But as I was researching them, and Albert's story, I was seeing a lot of mixed opinions about him. There were a lot of people who seemed to think he was being opportunistic, that he just had political aspirations and that he was trying to take advantage of emancipated African Americans. Yeah. But regardless, they're in Chicago and he's writing for the Times, and they start to just witness some more things that put a bad taste in their mouth about politics in general. I mean, Lucy at the time starts getting politically involved because she's always been one to it seems like she'd always been one to hold her ground and to stand up for herself. I mean, you can see that in her chart. But when she starts making dresses and she's working as a seamstress, she like took white people to court when they wouldn't pay their bill. Like she was like, no,
badass,
you're not getting away with this.
Because a lot of white people did that.
Yeah, definitely. And she would, I think there was something else about a dispute with a neighbor that she also took to court because she was like, no, from the very beginning. She's like, absolutely not. I'm not putting up with this.
Oh yeah, that's so opportunistic.
Right? Yeah. So they're in Chicago and he's writing more politically. Slowly his writing becomes more and more socialist, and he shifts from the Republican Party to the Socialist Labor Party. And
Communist.
And he's using the Times, his platform with the Times, to be with more politically charged pieces. And he becomes a delegate for the Socialist Labor Party. So around this time, he gives a speech to a large crowd of people. I think it's after the Great Railroad Strike of 1877, which was just like a massive strike with railroad workers, and the police came, disrupted it, and it ended up being like a big massacre. It was a terrible ordeal.
When are we going to stop doing that?
It's been happening. I guess it's been happening like forever, but it is crazy researching their story, how similar it feels to today's climate.
Yeah.
So he gets fired from his job at the Chicago Times after speaking to a crowd of striking workers. So Lucy then opens a dress shop, and she she starts to provide for their family. She becomes politically active after witnessing the Great Railroad Strike, and she starts to organize in her dress shop and talk to her workers and talk to her friends and her other female business owners. She becomes a co-founder of the Chicago Working Women's Union. And I put in parentheses, Coven, ? And then Albert joins the Knights of Labor, which I didn't do a lot of research into the Knights of Labor, but I think it's just another little like organized movement of like freedom workers. Mm-hmm. And they start to accept women. And as soon as they accept women, Lucy and her friend join. So she starts getting more and more involved. She also took the stance of intersectionality, which was not really a thing at the time, but from the very beginning, her thing was economic freedom, that there was like a core issue, and the core issue was capitalism, and that racism, gender inequality, racism, sexism, all of this had one core. And she was, like, before intersectional feminism was a thing, she was an intersectional feminist. Yeah, and it's something that she would understand more than anybody because she was a Black woman born into slavery in an interracial marriage, working as a seamstress and organizing laborers. So she was at the crossroads and in the liminal spaces of every single societal norm, just really getting up close and personal with every form of marginalization. Another angle that people take with Lucy is that, and I guess I could get into this later, but another angle that people take with Lucy that I was seeing why people were discrediting her is that she wasn't involved enough in Black civil rights, that she wasn't involved enough in race issues specifically. That there were like Ida B. Wells and people who were in the same time as her who were more focused on race, and she wasn't really going over there. In fact, she was telling Black people they shouldn't vote. She was telling people not to vote instead of trying to get people to vote, and we'll get into that too. Wow. But it's all of these reasons that she was seen as like, well, she's just appealing to like the white working class, and so that's why she'd never made as much of a mark on the world.
Oh my God. They just can't win.
They can't win. And the thing is, if you read any of her writing, you immediately see that that's not true. Like she was writing all the time. She was publishing and writing so much. Like we'll get into that too in a second, but there's so much of her writing that's out there, and there's so much of it that's specifically about race, that's specifically about feminism, that's specifically about all of these things. And I think a lot of it is tied back to she wouldn't acknowledge that she was Black. And so that's a big thing that was held against her as well. And she also was really like proper. She was really put together. So she had all of these like radical ideas, but she was very like grounded, the Taurus sun. She was very like poised and eloquent. So by 1880, Albert, her husband, is like realizing that there's actually no party that is aligned with his values. He's realizing just how corrupt politics are in general. So he's gone all the way to the Socialist Labor Party delegate to then saying, this is something from his memoir that he wrote. He said, bribery, intimidation, duplicity, corruption, and bulldozing grew out of the conditions which made the working people poor and the idlers rich, and that consequently the ballot box could not be made an index to record the popular will until the existing, debasing, impoverishing, and enslaving industrial conditions were first altered.
That's like that. I mean, I feel like he's talking about right now too.
Exactly. And Lucy believed that you cannot vote your way out of a system built on the exploitation of bodies, Black bodies, women's unpaid labor, and workers' desperation.
A woman to that.
Yes.
I agree.
So this was their philosophy. And so they were like the very early leaders of the anarchist movement in the States, because this was a pretty radical idea. Like there were people talking about it, but this was still a relatively new concept in the States. Like you have you have communism and socialism creeping in, and like more progressive radical ideals. But this was like, oh my God, the realization that, hold on, out with the whole system, because anything that's participating in the system at all is corrupt. So they're able to just like pierce through the surface. So they start, instead of getting engaged in politics, they start organizing, they start rallying, they start writing. Albert launches the Alarm newspaper, and they start using it to write their anarchist publication. They start to write and publish all of these thoughts and ideas. They're regularly speaking to crowds of 1,000 to 5,000 people in Chicago. They're gaining attention. He's mostly in the lead. She's not as active, but she is writing and she is organizing and she's getting people there and she is speaking, but not nearly as much as he is at this point. And this is what Albert said on Anarchy. He said, "The anarchist believes in peace, but not at the expense of liberty. He believes that all political laws are enacted only to force men to do those things they would not do naturally if left untrammeled. Therefore, he considers all political laws as violations of the laws of nature and the rights of men." Anarchy! And at the time, so then Lucy starts writing. And I'm just going to read some of the titles of some of the things she wrote. Some of her essays and just some of her like recorded speeches. One of them is called "Our Civilization. Is It Worth Saving?" Another one is "To Tramps, the Unemployed, the Disinherited, and Miserable." Another one is "Dynamite, the only voice the oppressors of the people can understand."
Wow.
So she took a little bit more violent of an approach.
Wow.
Than he did. He was a lot more like peaceful organizing, peaceful protest. And she was like, yes, peaceful, but the only time real change has ever been made is through violence. And it's not that I want us to be violent and to hurt one another, but you should learn how to use these weapons. You should learn how to make bombs, because if they know that you know how to do this, they're a lot less likely to fuck with you.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot about that kind of talk lately on social media, on TikTok. A lot of people who are like, I'm for peace, but that ain't going to get us nowhere. It never has, never will.
Yeah. And I mean, for peace, that's something that they say. That's a quote in here is, "I'm for peace, but not at the expense of my liberty."
Yeah.
It's like peace after, like peace through freedom, not peace through submission. And
taking the high road.
Yeah. And I personally, like my own, I feel conflicted in that philosophy. I think it's badass. I do feel conflicted in that philosophy of like, I feel like there is a way you don't need to fight violence with violence. But at the same time, at what point, like when is it enough? Like at what point do you fight back? There's so many acts of resistance. I do think like active resistance is the most powerful thing you can do. And so instead of just being like, no, whatever, fuck this, like we are here in an act of resistance. And like this is like an act of anarchy. Is this podcast is like talking about these stories in a new light, in a way that hasn't been I guess has not been given the platform that it deserves.
Right.
And in
actively, been suppressed.
Yeah, it's been suppressed. And so in actively resurrecting these stories and in actively building something that is in direct opposition, it does feel like an active sense of resistance. I don't feel that it is my calling to be violent personally.
I cannot imagine Jenna. Can you imagine Jenna violent? No.
But
oh, thanks, honey.
But I don't know if I can just sit here and say that I condemn it all the time either, you know? Like, I don't feel like that is my path toward it, but I don't know if
They're throwing people out of airplanes into the ocean.
From what we've been seeing and what we've been witnessing, I don't know if I can sit here and say that I think it's wrong to use violence in retaliation.
They're throwing people in the ocean shackled to each other.
Yeah.
They're people are floating up to the surface in Mallorca and Ibiza and and people are being found right now by the border dead. People are being sent off to. I mean, they just built a concentration camp with alligators. They deserve the life that they. I hope they get the life they deserve. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I've felt that way my whole life as well. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see, the next year, the next several years, how things unfold and how people choose to fight, how people choose to resist. I guess my stance is like, you can't blame people for fighting back. You can't hit somebody and then get mad when they hit you back.
You can't beat someone to a pulp almost to the point of them being dead and get upset with them punching back.
Totally.
That's basically what it is right now.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're organizing, they're writing, they're speaking, they're really focused on economic freedom. That is their like core kind of ideology, is like you get economic freedom that is going to unravel everything else. It's going to be like the core of liberation. Another quote from Lucy is, just to give you an idea of like her fiery tone as opposed to Albert. The Chicago Tribune published an essay or an article where somebody said the line, "When a tramp asks you for bread, put arsenic on it and he will not trouble you anymore." Basically saying like all these people who are hungry, who are asking for handouts, like just poison their food and that you won't have to deal with it anymore. And Lucy responded by saying, "Let every dirty, lousy tramp arm himself with a revolver or knife and lay in wait on the steps of the palaces of the rich and stab or shoot their owners as they come out. Let us devastate the avenues where the wealthy live, as Sheridan devastated the beautiful valley of the Shenandoah."
Anarchist.
So she meant business.
I love her.
So anyway, then comes May Day, first ever May Day. So May 1st, 1886 is considered to be the first ever May Day parade, where the Parsons together led 80,000 people down Michigan Avenue. Later, this became a crowd of almost 400,000 people.
What?
Marching for labor's rights, for workers' rights.
Oh, that's crazy.
However, 2 days into the march, there's strikes popping up all over, and in Chicago, police attend a peaceful strike, killing 6 workers. So May 4th, people are like so fed up with like the police brutality and all of this. These are peaceful strikes, like the anarchists, everybody, the unionists, communists, everybody is arguing for like peaceful strikes. They're just not working and protesting, and the police are coming and causing violence, causing chaos, and killing people. Sounds familiar?
Oh my God. It's like nothing's fucking changed.
So May 4th, 1886, 2 days after that, the anarchists, the communists, and the laborers all gathered together in Haymarket Square in protest of police violence. Have you heard of Haymarket Square?
No.
Okay, I feel like I'm taking too long, and I realize I have a lot of story left. So I'm going to try to speed it up, but this is like the climax of this story. So okay. Haymarket Square, it's called the Haymarket Affair. Have you ever heard of like the Haymarket 8?
No.
Okay. So at Haymarket, yeah, isn't that crazy? I guess, do you want to speak about what you see? And this is the transit chart for Lucy's chart with Haymarket, the Haymarket Affair.
Well, right off the bat, Pluto conjunct Venus and Sun conjunct natal Sun, but also let's see, I'm looking for...
Yeah, the date that I picked, I didn't even realize I was picking her birthday. This is the chart that made
that is her
this
birthday.
is the chart that made sense. No, this is the chart that made sense because of the May 4th Haymarket affair, and I didn't realize when I was picking her birth chart that I was picking the same day.
Oh, interesting.
But it it makes a lot of sense. It works.
Yeah. Go ahead and talk while I look at this.
So at Haymarket, they are speaking to a massive crowd of people very peacefully, and the mayor is in attendance, and he later reports to the peaceful nature of the rally. It's extremely peaceful. Everybody is just giving speeches talking about what's going on and what we can do to change it, to stop it. Albert is asked to speak at this. He originally declines because it's going to be outside. There's like chaotic air.
He's too vulnerable.
Outside he just doesn't want to like say anything that could accidentally cause violence, like incite violence, could be taken the wrong way, and the tensions are really high. So he's like, I'd rather not talk at this one. But when he gets there, he sees how peaceful it is, and he's like, okay, you're right, this is good, like I do have some words to say. And so he gets up and he says some words. Everything's fine, it's peaceful. At 10 p.m., they leave, and they're with their kids. They have 2 kids, and they go to a bar around the corner, along with several of the protesters and some of the other anarchists, and they start drinking a beer to decompress. Police then show up at 10 p.m., when this rally is pretty much already done.
Let's just start calling them the slave patrol, because that's really what they are.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So they show up at this rally and immediately start telling people that they need to leave, that everybody needs to go home, and a bomb is thrown from somewhere anonymously. There has, to this day, nobody knows who threw the bomb, but a bomb is thrown into the crowd, and it explodes, killing a police officer and injuring others. The police immediately open fire on the crowd after this. 7 more people die, and several of the police officers are injured. The funny thing is, most of the injuries from the police and most of the deaths came from
other police,
of course, came from friendly fire. But this is like a huge deal. This makes like national headlines. This is like, it's immediately labeled as the anarchists, like the chaos of anarchy, and like it's killing people, these protests, these strikes,
just like what they're doing right now. Saying on the news that these looters, they're so dangerous, they're so this, and yet they're what is it called, kettling, where they block everybody in. They give them a curfew, and then they won't let them out, and then as soon as the curfew hits, they arrest them because they're out, but they weren't allowed to go anywhere else, pushing them and shoving them on the ground like they're it's just awful.
Yep. Yeah, so they are immediately blamed for these deaths, for this bomb. Albert and 7 other anarchists are charged for inciting a riot. They have a trial, and they are convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. He and 3 others are sentenced to death by hanging for
doing nothing?
Doing nothing. And
except trying to be peaceful?
Several witnesses said that they saw Albert at the bar, that he was nowhere near.
That fucking thing sounds like an ambush.
Yeah,
it sounds like they were setting him up.
100%. They all reported. He and Lucy were both like, we brought our kids to this.
Right.
Like, if we were wanting to throw a bomb, if we knew a bomb was going to be there, we wouldn't bring our kids to this. He's like, I was literally drinking a beer around the corner at a bar when I heard it. But they're sentenced to death by hanging. And so Lucy takes this opportunity. She's obviously enraged, fueled by grief and just anger, absolute rage at this. She lectures to more than 200,000 people during the time of his imprisonment. He's in jail from 1886 to 1887, November of 1887. And she's collecting signatures. She's raising money. She has so many people behind her that, like, this is a mistrial. This is not correct. But it doesn't matter. There's also evidence that the jury was paid off, essentially. So he's sentenced to death by hanging, and he does get hanged.
Oh my God. How
She doesn't even get to
sad.
see him before. She goes to see him the morning of his hanging, and she's arrested and stripped and held in custody while he's being put to death.
Ay, ay,
Yep.
ay, ay.
This is the natal chart for the transit wheel for his death.
Oh, yeah.
Pluto conjunct Venus in the 8th house, all of this 12th house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Pluto conjunct Venus in the 8th house. So, like, transformation from a partnership. But Pluto's never, well, I mean, I can't say Pluto's never fun, but not really that fun. Pluto's not really that
I
fun.
think Pluto can be fun. But I have Sun conjunct Pluto. So.
Oh yeah, and then Mars conjunct her Jupiter in the 11th house. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So.
Oh, and Black Moon Lilith conjunct Uranus in the 6th house. Fuck the patriarchy.
Yeah. So after his death, she is just fuming, and she's fueled by obviously grief, but also by her husband's martyrdom. She's so inspired that like he had an opportunity to admit that he was guilty, admit that like he was preaching things that were harmful, and he would have had life in prison as opposed to being hung. And he refused. He up until the day he died was like, no, I'm fighting for, I believe in this. Like, this is worth dying for. And
like
she was so inspired by it that she just devoted herself to this work for the rest of her life. So she starts touring the country, giving speeches and publishing her powerful writing, and she's gaining a huge following. She's known as the goddess of anarchy for a reason. And when she's asked about the Haymarket bombing and like the death of the police officers, she says, I do not stand here to gloat over the murder of those policemen, but when a ball from the revolver of a policeman kills, it is as much murder as when the death results from a bomb. She also is, when she's asked about where they were and who threw the bomb, she reportedly said something like, no, I wasn't there, but if I was there, I would have thrown the bomb. Like she like says very inflammatory things like this. But at the same time, she remains posed and like very grounded. And that's why she gets so much attention, because the way that she speaks about these radical ideas is so, it's so, she's brilliant, and she's eloquent, and she's put together. She's not like too heated about it. She's very poised. One thing that she said, so she, so after she is speaking, she's going on tours, she's getting in front of as many people as she can. She gets banned from speaking in Chicago buildings, and so she takes to the streets, where she gets arrested over and over again and charged for incitement to riot. They're just trying to silence her as much as they can. A Chicago official even called her more dangerous than 1,000 rioters.
Oh my God.
And one thing that she said, and why she was writing and why she was speaking, is she says, anarchists know that a long period of education must precede any great fundamental change in society. Hence, they do not believe in vote begging nor political campaigns, but rather in the development of self-thinking individuals. And I just agree with that so hard. Before convincing people to vote, let's educate them. Like, the main problem is ignorance. The main issue why there's no change happening is because we are ignorant.
Yeah, that's still how it is today.
Yeah. So, she believes economic freedom is the core of liberation. She said nature made all the laws that man needed. She advocates for learning the use of explosives as the only language that oppressors seem to understand, while never actually using violence herself, which I think was also seen as hypocritical, because she spoke about it a lot, but she was never like out there.
But it's true.
Yeah, it is true.
I mean, you can be a peaceful person and say those motherfuckers don't know anything but violence.
And then the quote that the card pull made me think of that was so powerful to read. She was interviewed after the Haymarket situation while she was still in Chicago. And they asked her something like, what is anarchy to you? And like, what is the point of anarchy right now? Like, what is the purpose of this? And she says, this is the evolutionary stage of anarchism. The revolutionary period will be reached when the great middle classes are practically extinct. There will come a time when there will be in this world only two classes, the possessing class and the non-possessing class. These two classes will therefore find themselves arrayed against each other. A struggle in the revolutionary stage will come, and the order of things in the world will be changed by the people themselves.
We're here.
Yeah, I'm like, she's a full prophet.
Yeah.
That is like some prophet vision shit.
Mm-hmm.
So for the rest of her life, she just continues doing this. She's organizing until she dies. She helped to found, she's one of the founders of the Industrial Workers of the World in 1905, which is a massive labor organization internationally. And she was the only woman to speak at its inauguration. In the inauguration speech, she argued that sex workers should be allowed to participate and organize with this institution as well. They should be considered in the labor unions.
Hell yeah.
So she continues to fight, travel, and speak, and she crosses paths with another famous anarchist, Emma Goldman, who I hadn't heard of either, and I'm sure she's badass and has done so many great things, but she's from Russia. And she, not that there's anything wrong with being from Russia, she publicly disagrees. She starts to kind of go after Lucy because Emma was an anarchist who also believed that marriage existed in anarchy, like marriage was a topic, an institution that needed to be ignored, and monogamy was an institution that needed to be fought against. And I know there's a lot of people who do share that mindset with anarchy, and there's like a lot of really good arguments for that. Lucy didn't agree, even though Lucy did have multiple partners. After Albert's death, she was with multiple partners throughout her life, eventually settling with one long term. She believed in monogamy and she believed in marriage.
That's what I was going to ask, yeah.
And she said that. She was like, actually, I don't think that monogamy and marriage are in my political philosophy. That's actually not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I don't know, when I think about anarchy, I think about like freedom. And so if you believe in monogamy or you don't believe in monogamy, isn't that like you're free to believe whatever the fuck you want to believe?
And I think there is a lot to be said about like, you know, studying the origins and the history of monogamy and marriage, and the institution of marriage definitely is some dark shit.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think that there was anything inherently wrong with Lucy saying that she disagreed, and she publicly disagreed with Emma, and they just seemed to fight a lot. And I think this is around the time that she started getting a worse reputation for not being vocal enough, not owning up to her Black heritage, not being vocal enough with Black civil rights. Emma accused her of being like kind of a sellout because eventually it's
so funny to me when a white person just has all these opinions about how a Black person or someone of color should be.
Exactly. And like, it's probably realistically because she disagreed with her publicly and she was threatened. Like that's probably that my personal unresearched opinion is that's what it felt like in reading these stories. But I mean, again, most of the articles I was reading seemed to side with Emma Goldman on this, which is really interesting to me.
Not surprising.
Yeah. So anyway, she just like her reputation kind of goes not downhill, but she just becomes less of like the most adored anarchist. She also, in 1917, joins the Communist Party because she says that that anarchy is like losing its like the anarchists
ideals.
Yeah, the anarchists were like losing their original values, and that the Communist Party seemed to be something that was actually fighting towards something that was more aligned with what she was working towards. She keeps fighting, she keeps writing. In 1942, which is interesting because that's when
Yeah.
That's when
Sheer
was born. In 1942, she is 90 to 93-ish.
Wow, she lived a long life.
Long life. Her long-term partner comes home to their house on fire. An accidental fire. This is everywhere I looked. There's no record of how the fire was started. It just says an accidental fire that her partner came home to find. And he goes in to try to save her, and she's already dead. He dies the next day from injuries, trying to save her. A few days later, a friend of hers comes over to save her books that didn't burn in the fire and to try to salvage any of her writing and any of her journals. And they're all gone. The friend asks a local police officer.
Slave patrol.
Slave patrol. And the local officer says that the FBI was there and took everything. This friend then goes to the FBI or whoever and inquires about it, and they're like, "What? No, us? Why would we take that? That's not us. We didn't do that." Only to have years later, William James, the poet, I think William James, I keep forgetting which William it is, one of the Williams that was a poet, who was friends with her, gave her a book for her birthday or something one year or whatever, and wrote her a note in it that said, "To my dear Lucy E. Parsons," William James. That book resurfaces years later, and it has the Federal Bureau stamp on it.
Those motherfuckers.
And so that was like essentially confirmation that they did go in and raid her home and take these books and take her writing. And so because of that, we know we have so much of Lucy's writing and we have so much of her like work and her legacy, but we don't have her journals. We don't know what her like
life was.
Inner world was and like her intent behind this. And so it's so easy to misconstrue because you don't get to know who she is.
Well, that's what they want.
Exactly. So Lucy was courageous, resilient, relentless in her fight for liberation. She wielded her words like spells, understood the power of shared intention, and saw through the illusions that keep us divided. When they tried to silence her, she took to the streets. When they banned her from speaking platforms, she made every corner her pulpit. Lucy was uncompromising in her vision of total liberation. She refused to choose between her identities, refused to fight only one battle at a time, and she was an intersectional feminist before we even had the language for it. She was standing at the crossroads of every struggle and said, "These are not separate fights, this is one war." Her magic lives in every woman who refuses to be grateful for crumbs, who sees connections that others miss, and who knows that our liberation is all bound up together. And this is why I've decided to welcome Lucy Parsons into our coven.
Welcome, Lucy. I love her.
She's the best. She's very, very sick.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was just such a relevant person to do right now. Everything she writes about is so applicable to today.
Yeah.
And that prophecy of, like she said, right now, this is the anarchist evolution.
Yeah.
One day, there's going to be a revolution, and y'all are not ready for it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything that it's so interesting to me to hear about people from different times basically talking about the same exact issues that we have right now. Like, when is this going to change? When are we going to be free?
I think it's happening. I do. I really do. I think it's happening, and I think it's going to get a little bit, maybe a lot of bit worse, but I think it is happening.
Yeah.
Also, something interesting that I noticed when I was looking up other anarchists, like I was looking at the birth charts for the other Haymarket 8 anarchists who were sentenced to death, and just like other anarchists like Ted Kaczynski, Ted Kaczynski was also born in 1942, the year she died, and I'm like, interesting. But a lot of these people have a Saturn-Neptune aspect in their chart. Or not Neptune.
Uranus.
Saturn-Uranus.
Oh, I was going to say, really? Does Saturn-Neptune mean a revolution?
No. Saturn-Uranus aspect in their chart, which I think is really Interesting. Makes a lot of sense.
Structured liberation.
Yeah. Structured liberation, but also
organizing.
chaos to the establishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So many. So it feels like that is the signature of anarchy. Anyway, who would Lucy be hanging out with in our Coven meeting room?
Oh my gosh. An who have we done?
I mean, they're kind of all like anarchists in their own right. I mean,
she'd probably be hanging out with Sheer. Honestly.
True. True. Yeah, they would both be extremely pissed off together. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
I feel like she would love she and Anna Mendieta.
I was thinking about her too. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, who else was like angry?
Well, Sheer did a lot of like group with work and organization, with feminist groups and women's groups and stuff. So I feel like they definitely
similar.
would be hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
So welcome.
Welcome, Lucy Parsons. Lucy. This has been another episode of Coven. Thanks for joining us. See you next week.